aren't you going to have to choose between preserving the filibuster and advancing your agenda?
Yes. But here's the choice. I don't think you have to eliminate the filibuster. You have to do it what it used to be when I first got to the Senate and back in the old days when you used to be around there. And that is that a filibuster, you had to stand up and command the floor. And you had to keep talking alone. You couldn't call for, no one could say, quorum call. Once you stopped talking, you lost that, and someone could move in and say, I move the question of. So you got to work for the filibuster.
So you're for that reform. You're for bringing back the talking filibuster.
I am. That's what it was supposed to be. Look, I think
that was President Biden this week, reigniting talk of changing Senate rules to reform the controversial filibuster rule. As you heard there, he says he wants the Senate to go back to how things were when he entered the chamber in 1973. If senators want to hold the floor and object to a bill, you have to keep talking, like the scene in Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, where Jimmy Stewart's character holds the floor for more than 24 hours to prove his innocence. CBSN Washington reporter Caitlin Huey-Burns joins me now with more. Hi there, Caitlin. So how has President Biden's position on the filibuster changed from the campaign to now?
Hi, Elaine. Well, during the campaign, lots of Democratic candidates were talking about filibuster reform because at the same time they were introducing these big priorities, these big proposals that would require, or at least ask the question of how can you actually get any of that done with the way things are in the Senate. But Biden was unlike some of those other candidates. He didn't really go into that. He really kind of stayed away from supporting any changes to the Senate rules. And then, as you mentioned, and show that those great photos of him from back in the day. I mean, he had been in the Senate for 36 years. He's considered an institutionalist. So the idea that he came out this week and said that he's open to even modest changes. And again, I emphasize that it's a modest change. He's not proposing eliminating the filibuster like a lot of progressives are. But a lot of activists and some lawmakers that I've been talking to this week say that that was a real turning point because it suggested to them that Biden knows his agenda and the agenda of the Democrats is at stake and beholden to the way the Senate is operating right now.
Right, and on that point, so the reason the filibuster is such an important topic now is because it would take 60 votes to change the current system, but Democrats only have 50. That's enough to change the rules. If everyone gets on board, but not to pass a law, so how does this all work?
Yeah, this is the United States Senate, Elaine. None of it really makes sense.
Yeah.
Not to go too into the weeds here, but there is a way for the Senate majority to be able to change the rules with just majority support. And that's how they did it in 2013 when Harry Reid and the Democrats changed the filibuster rules to allow for presidential nominees and judges to be able to be confirmed with a simple majority. When Republicans got control and during the Trump administration, they also passed a rule, changed the filibuster to allow for Supreme Court nominees to just get majority support, and they got 3 Supreme Court justices out of that. Now the focus is on legislation itself, but there's still a long way to go. There is not support yet in the Democratic caucus in the Senate for outright elimination of the filibuster, but you do have some senators who have expressed some interest, at least, in some of these reforms. So Joe Manchin, who has long been a holdout on the filibuster, has said that he may be open to a conversation about the talking filibuster, that kind of Mr. Smith Goes to Washington dynamic that you mentioned at the top. Kyrsten Sinema from Arizona has also been opposed to changing the filibuster, and some others like Dianne Feinstein and others have really expressed some reluctance to make these big changes. So the conversation is really focused now around how can there be some minimal changes, whether it's a talking filibuster, whether it's changing kind of the threshold for moving on to a bill. Right now it's 60, but still these are all conversations. And even though the president's comments were seen as a turning point, activists I talked to know that they're still a long way off, and you're going to start to see the pressure building from voters if it gets to a point that they're not seeing any progress being made on legislation.
Well, you spoke to Oregon Democratic Senator Jeff Merkley about the filibuster and its potential impact on Democrats in the upcoming election should it stay. Let's listen to that.
It'll be Armageddon. the election Armageddon. Here's a filibuster on Republican priorities and on Democratic priorities. What did the Republicans do? They struck down the filibuster on their priorities. Their top two things were tax cuts for the rich, so they changed the rules in order to do tax cuts for the rich by simple majority. And then their top priority was the Supreme Court, so they changed the rules to do the Supreme Court by simple majority. So they feel, the Republicans feel like this is great. Our priorities have a simple majority pathway, and yet we can obstruct the Democratic priorities. How beautiful is that? And our base is going, what a bunch of idiots you are.
So, Caitlin, explain what he means when he says there are two different filibusters for each party's priorities.
Yeah, and I've been hearing this also from scholars that I've been talking to, have been studying the filibuster. I mean, they're noting, and Merkley is noting, that Republicans are able to get their big priorities done because of the way the rules are now. They changed the rules for Supreme Court nominees. The rules were changed by Democrats for judicial appointments and executive nominees. So those are top priorities for Republicans. They are often galvanized around the idea of reshaping the Supreme Court and judgeships around the country. So they can do that with just majority support. They also were able to pass that big tax bill during the early days of the Trump administration with reconciliation, that process that Democrats just used to pass the COVID relief bill that doesn't require majority support. What Democrats are realizing now is that, yes, they were able to get that COVID relief bill through reconciliation, but a lot of the other big priorities that they campaigned on, that President Biden campaigned on, involve things around climate change. Voting rights has been a real galvanizing force around filibuster reform, gun laws, a variety of different things that Democrats want to do. Immigration, infrastructure, tax increases that Biden was talking about earlier this week would require more than majority support. So it would require overcoming the filibuster. So they're starting to realize, look, if we want to get anything done, it's going to be really difficult to actually pass these priorities. And that's why you're starting to see this interest in making some changes to the filibuster. But we'll see whether that's enough to galvanize some of those Democratic holdouts that they still need.
All right, Caitlin Huey-Burns. Caitlin, really great to see you. Thank you.
Thank you.